Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for this Thursday afternoon program. I'm Dylan Ryder from the Johnson County Library. We have the privilege to be joined by Karen Sillens from A+ Career and Resume, who will be talking about career management strategies. Some quick info about our presenter. Karen Sillens is a multi-certified and award-winning career and business coach. Karen provides resume writing, career and executive coaching, and small business coaching to clients in Kansas City and throughout the US and Canada. Karen has held a membership in the prestigious Forbes Coaches Council since 2016, was chosen as one of 38 career experts to watch in 2018 on Twitter, and is rated as a top social media influencer for employment, human resources, and recruitment on Agiliance. She resides in Kansas City, Missouri with her husband Andrew and their 4 rescue dogs. Feel free to add your comments and questions to participate in our discussions. You can just throw that in the chat. Karen will attempt to address each question at different points throughout the presentation. Thank you all again, and here's Karen.
Hello, everybody. As he said, I have 4 rescue dogs. We actually just lost one, so we now only have 3, at least temporarily, but they do every once in a while photobomb with their tail. So just so you know, they're tall dogs, and every once in a while you'll see a tail or a snout, but they usually just go sleep during this time. Typically, when I do seminars like this, I tell people that, you know, I follow everything very strictly, and all there is in front of you is this along with, and it's just really a whole outline. This time I've actually put 3 paragraphs at the beginning kind of explaining why this is important. And I thought it was something necessary because COVID will eventually be either like the flu every year, or it will be something that we will not pay as much attention to. It may not seem like that right now, but it ultimately will be that way. Just like the Great Recession that we went through and we thought would never end because it took 10 years, it eventually went away. So we need to remember that regardless, something can always come up. The economy can be great. There can be obviously no pandemic going on, and still there can be issues with a company you work for. Maybe it was mismanaged. Maybe they're trying to give more profit to the people who invest in the company, and suddenly a job goes away without you realizing it. Or you're thinking about starting your own business, but there's been no prep for it. So we want to talk about why it's important to always be ready and the different things you can do to make yourself that way, and not have this hurry up, oh my gosh, I need something right now. Every week I get calls from people, and I've had 2 this week already, that are from people who needed a resume turnaround by tomorrow or the next day, 2 days from now, because they had not planned and something popped up and they waited to the last minute, and I couldn't help them, and I don't know that they could find somebody qualified to help them in that time. I don't want that to be you. I want you to have that feeling of, you know what, I've got enough prepared that if something happens, I just go in and do tweaks and updates and I'm ready to go. That is so very important. So I'll let you read those first 3 paragraphs for yourself, but it does talk about aspects to contemplate, if you will, as to where you want to be prepared and what it is that you want to look for in an opportunity should a new one arise, or how you're evaluating your current workplace. The economy is never going to be in your control. And nor do I want it to be in my control because that's just too much complicated stuff. However, understanding the numbers and how they relate to you is a huge issue. And a lot of people don't realize that what you're being told sometimes and what really goes on are 2 different things. There are real unemployment and underemployment numbers. And there's all kinds of tables that there's a link on there to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. But if you just go to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, it will say, hey, if you want to see a list of our tables, here they are. And they have the employment and unemployment numbers on them. Then there's the second table that's listed. And I tell people the U6 number is what you want to pay attention to, as opposed to what they call the U3 number. All you hear on the news is about people who are currently on unemployment. That is not the number of people who are unemployed. Because a lot of people, they may be in a specialty field that's been particularly impacted. They may be, say, in the restaurant field, and that's been decimated by COVID. So their job search, if they're staying in the same industry, may be exceptionally lengthy. So it's going to go beyond the 6 months of unemployment, and they're going to fall off that list. U6 still considers them in that number. So where in your area, and you can find this out by state or by national number, where the U3 number will tell you, hey, all these people right now on our list say it's 8.2% unemployment. That's the people that are on unemployment right now. The U6 number will tell you, oh, it's 10.3 or something like that, because those are people who are still looking beyond the 6 months of unemployment. They're marginally at least attached to searching for a job. You always want to consider what your true unemployment number is around you in your city. Usually Kansas City's is much lower than the national average. Because we're not industry dependent, that makes us more advantageous within the aspect of finding a job. However, that doesn't mean it's necessarily always going to be easy. Knowing the unemployment in your city, I gave you a link. And also by metropolitan area, but you have to go down that list of ways to find Kansas City because it's a lot of different cities in the United States. If you know these numbers, the thing that you can do with those over time is if you see numbers ticking up, that may be something to say, hey, you know what? I need to go out and try to get some updated information. Grab my list of professional development from the workplace, the things that they allow me to do internally. I need to update my resume, add a few bullet points. If I don't have copies of my performance review, see if I can get them. Those kinds of things can make a difference because now you're updating before something bad happens and you're in control. And that's what this is all about, being in control. Knowing your industry is also important. Certain industries are going to have a better response during bad economic times. There are 5 industries that tend to always be hurt when there's a true recession. Number 1, IT. Number 2, marketing. Those 2 will be outsourced. Doesn't mean all people in marketing and IT lose their jobs. It just means that there's too many of them that are outsourced. Companies don't want to spend extra marketing dollars during this time, and they don't understand the value of doing it. They think, well, the IT stuff, you know what? We don't need as many people. We can just bring in people when we need to from an outsourced perspective. Then the economy gets better and they hire people back in. The other thing is the groups that build things. So I want to describe these as engineers, architects, and construction workers. A lot of times during an economic downturn, at least until people start thinking about renovations, they're not going to have a lot of new building going on. Ironically, right now, home building is huge because there's a lack of new homes for people who are wanting to search for homes. But that's COVID era. That's a different thing. So the recession, a traditional recession, usually those 3 industries have some problems. If you know it ahead of time, or if you know your industry in general, you've experienced these layoffs before, let's say it's the airline industry, or it's another industry that's similar, car manufacturing is another one, you might want to really maintain, like every quarter, update your resume, just to make sure you are doing the things you need to do in order to stay current. And updating your resume can often be so simple. It's maybe taking a bullet point or 2 off and adding a couple. But now you're not doing it in an emergency when you're like, oh gosh, I can't think of what I even want to put on here. Then keep track of job market trends. Those things that impact how the market around your industry, in other words, is reacting to things. Sometimes for no reason that we can even determine, an industry starts to suffer problems. There's no true explanation other than maybe it's starting to go out of fashion, if you will. Or Is it a seasonal impact? If you like to get a part-time job during the Christmas time or the summertime, you're probably in pretty good shape there. That's increasing your potential to earn money. But there are some companies during Christmas time, they shut down. Same with event-based impacts, and event-based impacts would be things like COVID. So now let's move on to education. This is where a lot of people really get confused. What can they put on a resume? What do they need to consider as far as professional development ongoing and all the different things that help you make decisions in your career? People go, well, I don't have a degree. Welcome to the crowd. 28.4% of people have an actual degree, and it's a 4-year degree. And that is a very low number for most people. They go, really? I thought everybody went to college and had a degree. And when you go online and you see so many companies going, we want somebody with a degree, you think, well, gosh, there must be 80% of the population with it. But it's less than 30% that actually holds that degree. And it's not my number, Bureau of Labor Statistics and Census Bureau, that's where I get that from. Now that may go up or down a little bit, but it's stayed fairly constant for a long time. And you can be pretty sure that most people still do what happened when I went to college. And you probably experienced the same thing if you went to college. People go when they're young at 18, and we ask 18-year-olds to make a decision on what they're going to do for the rest of their life. Not our best choice a lot of times. And then on top of it, there's the pressure to perform at college while there's all these other things. We're away from home a lot of times. It's so exciting. And we major in beer and pizza, and then that's it for college for a while. Some people go back, some people don't. The number of people that start and go to college at least for a little while, that's a huge number. The number of people who complete is a much smaller number. So if you don't have a degree, no worries. Unless you want to be an engineer or an architect or a doctor, usually it's not going to hurt you. One of the things that we can do to help us in our career, and this can include being an entrepreneur, whether you're job searching right now, or even in your current job, if there's promotion opportunities or an opportunity to maybe get paid more, is certifications. And we're going to talk about those more in depth. But you see on the second, if you will, bullet point underneath education, what about proper level of degree or certification? Let's say you have a psychology degree, you have a bachelor's in psychology. That is wonderful, but you can't truly practice in psychology as a psychologist or a psychiatrist until you at least have a master's, and you have to have the doctorate to be a psychiatrist. That is something to really consider when you say, hey, if I'm going to go back to school, do I want to remain in this? And I'm saying this from a friend that's doing it right now. She had a bachelor's in psychology. She's worked in the periphery in that arena for a long time, but of course she was never going to get paid what she really wanted to be paid until she went back and got her master's. Now she's going to earn the kind of money that's requisite of her experience, but she needed that extra degree. Most of you will never need an additional degree in order to earn your money. It's just that some different industries require that for certain jobs. Know that, and if you need to go back and get more education, see if you can plan for it. And one of the plans you can do is target companies that help you pay for your university time. Sometimes it's only a partial payment, sometimes they'll fully pay. Usually they'll ask you to return favor to them in no more than 2 extra years over the time after you get the degree. A lot of companies don't ask you to do that at all. They will pay for your degree, it's just part of your benefits, or at least part of it. And that's a huge benefit if you don't have to be encumbered by those student loans. Please look for companies that will help you if you are going to go back, finish a bachelor's, get a master's, whatever. And it is true from a marketing perspective, and that's what you're doing when you're applying for a job or you're promoting yourself as an entrepreneur. Degrees can matter, just like certifications can matter. And you see, I have a couple letters there under the certifications too. What if you have a CAPM, which is a Certified Associate Project Manager, versus a PMP, which is a project management professional. A lot of companies will still consider you even if you have the CAPM, even though they'll say PMP required. That's a little secret a lot of people don't know, because they figure if you can get the CAPM, you can easily go finish the PMP. However, the project management full certification, the PMP, some companies, that's a necessity to them for you to work for them. And some companies, it's just a benefit. And maybe you're like one of my clients right now who doesn't have a college degree and never went to college, but they have a PMP. And guess what? That's the attention that they need. Companies go, oh, she just got it 3 years ago. It's current knowledge. She's using it in the workplace. They don't care about the college degree now. So you can use certifications and certain types of professional development to bolster your opportunities over time versus having to go get a degree. So what if you have multiple degrees? Welcome to the club. There's a lot of people who have multiple degrees. Both my husband and I have 2 degrees each. They're not in what we do because 18-year-olds making decisions for their lives. But there's still something that can be used to market. Be careful though. Small, sometimes even mid-sized companies will make a judgment based on you having a master's or extra degrees beyond what they would consider what they're looking for. So they can actually discriminate against you and think you'll cost too much. So you may not want to mention your master's, or you may not want to mention those other 2 bachelor degrees that you have because they don't apply. And I have clients, they take things on and off depending upon where they're applying. Larger companies, government, all of that, the more you have, the better it is. They love it. You can have 45 degrees, 200 certifications, they think you're wonderful and they'll still hire you. Professional development and continuing education, that is something you need to do on a regular basis. Sometimes your companies provide you that. The bigger the company, the more likely they are to at least have webcasts you can go view that are an hour or more long that count as professional development in that company. Why is it important for your career management and the design of your career? What if you're looking to go do something different? Maybe you target some things at your company that are professional development that are more towards where you want to go. Or maybe you take external professional development towards that end. You're not going and getting a full-on degree, but maybe you're learning the top 2 programming languages that are involved in being a business analyst so you can translate your skills into that. That is planning your career. That is part of that design of where you're going. And a lot of times those things can be very low cost. And that's one of the biggest advantages of professional development. You can either sometimes get it free at the company you work for, or you can actually go and utilize it in an online setting or at your local community college for a very low cost. Next is online versus traditional degrees. There are some institutions out there, higher learning. You see them advertised a lot on television. They are not accredited the same as the University of Missouri-Columbia, KU, K-State, University of Central Missouri, Park University. They're not accredited in the same way by the same accreditation organization. And what will happen is people will get a degree from there, and sometimes it's more specialized, like mechanical engineering. But because it's not accredited in the way it needs to be, they can't get a job in it until they take 3 or 4 more courses through a place like University of Missouri or University of Kansas. Always check. Don't be bright, shiny object syndrome about your degree. I have had clients come to me, they signed up for stuff with some of these universities. I have made them make the call and cancel it in front of me and do their research. We make decisions sometimes based on the bright, shiny object. Bright, shiny objects are just that. They're bright and shiny. It doesn't mean they're worthwhile. Be very careful making a decision on a 4-year plan for your college or getting a master's degree based on this sounds neat, or they're a little cheaper, or whatever. Make your decision based on they're fully accredited in what I want to do. They're recognized by the places I want to do it at, particularly the high professional degrees like engineering, being a doctor, things like that. But also, you're going to have more of a, what I would call, gravitas when you go in for the interview or you get interviewed online because you took from a bigger university. That doesn't mean that if you got an online degree from an organization that maybe isn't in the traditional accreditation stage, and a lot of times they're online, sometimes they're in person too, doesn't mean that you can't use that degree. It just means if you're making that decision now, I would move you as a client towards that kind of program, not towards one that's not accredited in the normal manner. If you do professional development instead, you can actually use these online programs to your benefit. Maybe you just want to take a specific course. Well, then nobody cares where it comes from a lot of times, as long as it sounds like a normal place. There are some programs out there that are named, and they're not named in a professional manner. And I'm always real careful. I don't name them on here, but I will tell my clients that, don't take it from this because that doesn't look professional. Their training may be great, but they didn't consider what was going to look good to a company, whether they're going there now and use it for now, or they're going to use it on a job search later. Make sure that those continuing education credits are something from an organization that has a name that sounds professional. Learning opportunities are abounding today. I am going to mention some really good things for you. Coursera. You want to go take a marketing course through Wharton Business School? You can go do that for free on Coursera. And for, I think it's like $45, you can get the certificate that proves you completed it. That is an awesome way to gather some nice information on your resume and have it to use ongoing. Now, when I say course, I mean their actual course that other people are attending on campus. You're learning online, of course, but it's a taste of that university that they're offering you to see if you might sign up for a larger program. Why not take advantage of that? And Coursera spelled Coursera. There are many organizations that offer wonderful professional development. One of them that seems to span a lot of industries is Human Capital Institute, and their website's hci.org. They're very HR, targeted, of course, because human capital is human resources. However, they got stuff on there for management. They've got things on there about how you help your own employees. A lot of you are wanting to go into management or you're currently in management. You can use that to your advantage. It doesn't matter that it's not from American Management Association, where in order to get access to those programs now, you have to pay $265 a year or whatever it is. And those are great too. Those are very good courses. What we're trying to do here is get what a lot of times is free webcasts that are an hour or longer that you can put on your resume, low cost, or an entire course that you can put on your resume that's low cost that will help you in your career. A lot of you will change industries. You won't be satisfied in what you're doing. You'll decide to grow in your career and go someplace else. These can help you do that. Certifications and licensing are also programs that can be very helpful to you. But I will tell you, traditional certifications and licensing mean a lot of study and usually pretty high cost, often starting out at $500 and going well past that. Sometimes people think, well, I'll just go and take the certification test, which sometimes can cost $200, $300, $400, $500 just to take the test. I would highly advise you, unless you know a whole lot about that industry, be sure that you get the learning first, which sometimes you can get going sideways, some pretty good information through some of these training courses through like a skills success or vision training. And you can have that pre-certification instruction over 10, 15, 20 plus modules. Now you can take the certification. You can do all of that training from home. And now you've got the advantage of having usually pretty good training that may have cost you 20, 40, 60 bucks. That's it. And you can move into taking that certification and have that ongoing. Again, if you don't have a degree, sometimes that professional development and the certification coursework you take can be everything into you moving forward in your career, whether you're changing or you're staying. So do not judge yourself and say, oh, I should have gotten a degree, when it may never have been necessary in your industry in the first place. Next, let's talk a bit about lifelong learning, the last bullet, if you will, under that section. Companies look for people who continually take courses. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to take these 6-month courses or something, but you take that hour webcast here and there. And it's not just the I shouldn't sexually harass people and diversity stuff, or anti-money laundering if you're in the finance industry. This is often about very different things that people don't consider. But here's a list. Obviously, anything to do with computer programs, always good. If you're getting into analytics at all, and that means analyzing areas of business, well, guess what? You might want to look into some programming languages that apply to that, like R, Python, and SQL. Another thing that you can do that can be very helpful to you is do anything in leadership, management, and communications with others. Emotional intelligence and how we communicate with others will always go over well on a resume. And you don't have to put 400 different ones on your resume. If you have, let's say in the last 7 to 10 years, because usually you don't remember much beyond that. Let's say you have 25 different things you've taken. Well, you can have that list with you for an interview. You can always volunteer to send it to them. But on your resume, you only have 8 of them listed because they're the ones that are important. They're maybe more recent. They've got the biggest bang for their buck. And sometimes they're keyword and key phrase rich for those little scanning systems we have to apply in, which can be very handy. Having that ongoing list and knowing what you have and haven't taken is also important for you to see where there's little cracks in your career that you might want to fill. If your job goes away tomorrow and you've got some of the professional development you need to make it look like I'm always learning in my career, you're going to have a quicker job search than somebody else. If you're wanting to change careers or become an entrepreneur, getting the training while you already have a job or your current job or before you go after that promotion is going to make you more marketable. And that's ultimately what this becomes, marketability. Now let's talk about the experience factor. A lot of people transition into a new job, or they want to, and they say, well, I lack experience. Whether you volunteer with a volunteer organization to help them in some way that relates, which often you can, or you volunteer to do an internship, and believe it or not, some companies will allow you to do it. I have a client doing that right now. He is in his 40s. He wants to do something different. It's somewhat related to what he used to do, but it's not the same. And he just volunteered. And not only was he able to volunteer for him, but now they're paying him because he's doing great work for them. He can take that once he's done with this opportunity and move it into real experience for the next job. But I also want to caution you, make good decisions on where you're moving and the professional development you might get in order to do that. I have clients who call me, or potential clients, all the time, and I just had one this week, and he was taking things that weren't the current technology. It's nice that they started him there. It didn't necessarily all have application to what he wanted to do. And I actually talked to him about that a little bit, gave him some tips and hints about what he might want to look at taking, and let him know, free of charge, hey, this is what's available to you out there. The reason I do that is because if he's not going to use services, I still don't want somebody making a bad choice. If I can give you just a teeny bit of free information and point you in a good direction, I will do it. And that's because you need to be able to make a good decision where you're going in your next career and get the right education to do it. And since he doesn't need a new college degree to do it, all he needs is a little bit of training on the side in this particular specialty. If he gets it from the right places and it's for what's being used now, he's going to benefit from it. If he puts what he's currently getting onto a document and tries to sell himself, other than the one technology he's learning, they're not going to consider him. And he also didn't have an understanding of where he fit in as far as how he was going to utilize this for a job. That's a problem as well. Know how you will fit in, where you will go, why you're going to do it, and get the good education to do it, whether it's professional development or an entire degree, so you can have that design of your career that makes sense, a trajectory that gets you where you want to go. Professional development and certification sites can have a lot of really actually good information to help you understand what that job does. But the very first sub-bullet point there that says ONET is the place to go. If you just go into Google and type ONET, it will bring up the ONET online information for you. It's a website put out by the government, and it's our tax dollars at a very good use. You think, oh, I know a lot about different careers that are out there. Most people only know about 40 or 50. There are over 12,000. This is a site you can go searching and find things that are related. And, you don't want to, get into a rabbit hole here and go play 12 hours on the site. Limit yourself to about an hour to two at a time. But you can go look at different careers here. It's a great source of information for you to help make good decisions. And if you've got a teenager who's trying to figure out what they want to do with the rest of their life, make them go on the site. Because they think they want to be a teacher because they like the teachers they had. But then when they find out what teachers truly do all day, and maybe do a couple of informational interviews, which we'll talk about in a second, they don't want to be a teacher. Well, you don't want them wasting 4 or 5 years in a program when, oh, you know what? Instead, they'd really want to do this. Let's get them pointed in a direction that makes more sense for them from the beginning and help them to be as effective as possible. There are a lot of wasteful degrees out there. There's no practical use for them on the other side. And as I tell my clients, if you're going to let your teen take a course that doesn't have a practical application, they better take one that does with it. Meaning they're going to get 2 degrees, and it'll probably take them 5 years. That extra year will be worth every penny. I have a degree in vocal performance. I'm a trained opera singer. Yes, I do that on the side. My husband and I sing for weddings and funerals, and we sing at church and all that kind of stuff. And I love to sing, and I sound like an opera singer. However, that is a hard career to get into and stay in and be famous and make enough money in it. It's that starving artist syndrome. Well, my other degree is in teaching, more practical. And my parents insisted on it. They said, no, you can't go get that without the practical degree. And they were right. When I got out of college and I started applying for jobs, they didn't care about the performance degree. They cared about the teaching degree. Oh, she's got a teaching degree. She must be qualified. And my first job was an office manager because it paid more than being a teacher. That's shameful and it shouldn't be happening, but it did. And that's just the way it is today. It's still that way today a lot of times. And that office management job got me into HR, which got me here. So sometimes you take a very convoluted trip to where you're going, but it did make sense ultimately because I teach every day with my clients. And the performance aspect is sometimes actually doing a presentation like this. And the fact that you're so used to doing things like this, you're not shy. And yeah, ooh, I stumbled over some words. You don't freak out and can't talk now. They came in handy. And they've definitely been used. But if I had to go do it again, I'd go get different degrees. You know, as an adult now, I know that. Mentorship is great. Now you can find mentors at work or through a religious institution, people that already do the career you want to do, or mentors at a professional organization, or you may have friends and family. Now be careful with family in particular. A lot of times family, that has a whole dynamic to itself that you may not want to deal with. But if they're more distant as a family member and you don't have a lot of connection to them, then they could be a great mentor for you. What you're looking for is somebody who can help you point yourself in the right direction towards things. And mentorship is wonderful to build yourself up to that next level. Well, I don't know if I want to go to the next level. Well, if you get you a mentor, you can find out. Instead of making the mistake and being forced into that next level in your career, you can find out what's really going to be required of it by spending some time with a mentor. That helps you, again, design where you're going in a logical manner. Because if you find out that's not where you want to be, and that's okay, you can start to make a different plan. Informational interviewing is one of the best things you can do. And you don't do it to waste people's time or think you're going to get a job from them. It's never about that. Informational interviewing, whether it's your teenager or it's you, is to find out about careers that you're thinking you're going to go do. You know, it's like, I want to be a teacher. Well, how about we really sit down with the teacher and find out, what do they love about what they do? What do they hate? And it probably should be somebody outside their own school if they're going to interview a teacher. Let's go do somebody we don't know and they don't know us. What is it that they had to do to get that job? Did they need special training beyond their degree? Do they have to get extra degrees? Is there a lot of political stuff involved in this job? All these questions you can ask, and there's lists of informational interview questions online. But you're probably going to ask somewhere between 10 or 15 questions. You're going to make sure it's convenient to the person who you're informationally interviewing and get some real detail about why they're in that job. And sometimes what they hate about that job is just as informative to you or that 18-year-old as it is for somebody who tells you what they love about their career. And I've actually had clients before make a decision not to move forward to a specific career based on talking to 2 or 3 different people in that industry, and they all hated the same thing. And they decided that was not the career for me. That's too much of my day, and I don't want to do it. That is just as useful as finding out, oh my gosh, I think I'm going to love this. If you are a new college graduate, first of all, congratulations. Second of all, yes, there are too many companies that go, well, we need you to have experience. You want to showcase to them how the projects and the things that you worked on during your degree can be translated into real skill for them. First of all, you have to do it on your resume so you can get past the scanning system. So let's say you are an engineer. Well, if you had a couple of projects, guess what we're going to talk about on the resume under a job? We're going to list that class. We're going to list that we were a student in that class and what it was all about. We're going to talk about it as if it's a job. Sometimes volunteer experience will get you where you want to go. And then there's, of course, internships. Experience comes in all facets, and it's not always paid. A job is a job, whether you got paid for it or not. So you can take advantage of those towards your next goal. particularly for those who first graduate from something and they're struggling to find their new job. I highly encourage them to volunteer if possible, or to seek a free internship if they can't find a paid one, and then also leverage the experience they got in their degree. A lot of times there's classes that you took, absolutely apply. They had large projects in them, papers, presentations, all kinds of stuff, but it lends itself, whether it's you did a market research study or whatever, to where you want to go. How do you gain more knowledge in your current industry? One, get your mentor again. Mentors can often point you in great directions on how to help you get additional experience in your industry. There are so many people who would love to mentor somebody. And the lovely thing about having technologies like Zoom today, you don't have to be there to get it. You guys can be on the opposite sides of the US and you can get just as much benefit from it. And guess what? As somebody who's mentored a lot of people in this industry, I get just as much from doing it as I would if I was on the other end. It's a benefit to both parties. Take advantage of it. Another thing is getting knowledge in your current industry could be, what does your company have available? People go, oh, they don't have any training programs. Yeah, but they might send you to a conference that does. Do they ever send their people to conferences? Or could you ask? I had a client work for a very small company, and I said, you know, you can get a lot of free training if you get this particular membership. Why don't you ask the company if they'll pay for it? And they did. And now she's getting all this training. Well, she's applying it there, but it doesn't mean ultimately she won't move to another company. But she's been able to not only gain a lot of additional industry experience, but she's been able to use it at her current workplace to make them more efficient, make them more effective, and to make them more money. What company doesn't love that? That $99 membership was well worth their paying it. A lot of companies will pay for those. A lot of companies will pay for you to go to a conference or to get a certification. Find out. The worst that's going to happen is they say no. And don't just rely on just one person, unless it's the president of the company, to tell you yes or no. Find out from multiple people. What has their experience been? A lot of companies will help pay for that. There are, as we've talked about before, options beyond the degree programs. Do not discount certifications and professional development in place of a degree. Since most people don't have them, what are they using? They're often using their experience that they already have, combined with either a certification or professional development. That makes you well-rounded, so a company really likes what they're hearing and what they're seeing when they look at you on paper, and you know you're bringing a bigger set of skills to them. That's an advantage. And again, it's that competitive advantage, that marketing of yourself to them. Manage your career now. Make some of these decisions now, and your career won't manage you later. As I said in those 3 paragraphs at the beginning, careers wind up managing us way too often. And you'll get into this industry and it's wonderful and we enjoyed it and oh my gosh, we think it's the best thing ever. And then it's not as popular anymore. It doesn't have growth in it anymore. And now we're lost and we don't know what to do. This can avoid a lot of that for you because you're getting those additional pieces of training and things to either move elsewhere in the industry where there is more opportunity, or outside to another, maybe even related industry. Internships, excuse me. Internships are not as prevalent as they used to be, but doesn't mean they don't exist. And ironically, a lot of times they're with small companies. Everybody thinks, oh, I have to go do it for IBM. No, a lot of times it's a small company. They've only got 10, 20 employees, and no, you're not going and getting coffee all day. You do get to work on a lot of projects. but you're a lot of times providing your expertise for free, but you can leverage it on a resume. And that's what really looks good. A lot of my clients in marketing and graphic arts will utilize those free internships for 2 months here, 3 months there, to give them real experience that they can now take and use in a job. Sometimes the university or college that you're connected with will help you get them. So don't be afraid to ask. Next is find a mentor. And we've talked about that some, but I want to help you understand what you say when you ask somebody to mentor you. You don't necessarily just walk up to them and say, would you be willing to mentor me? But what you do is you ask them some questions about whether they like to share their experience with other people. Or if you've already noticed that they do that, then you may be able to actually come right out and say, here's something I'm looking for, and I wonder if you'd be open to this. Maybe we could meet once a month or once every 2 weeks for a half an hour. So you're giving them short time frames, not going to take a lot of their time. And if they really like what they do, they'll probably give you more time. But you're taking these short spurts of time. You're leveraging their expertise. And again, they're getting something out of it. But you want to make sure that they understand ultimately as you start to bridge that subject of, hey, I'm really looking for a mentor, that they realize it's not going to take all their time, that you don't need all kinds of projects from them. They don't need to be spending hours upon hours with you. You're looking for short, concentrated, essentially coaching, kind of what it's like. And you will be surprised as to how much that will help you. Don't be afraid to start a conversation and find out if they're even interested in maybe doing some coaching, and maybe you can call it coaching at first. If they like to share their knowledge with other people. And if so, would they be willing to help you? Going back to college, a lot of people do that as an adult. And when I say adult, now I'm talking about people who they're in their 30s, 40s, 50s. There's nothing wrong with going back to college. It used to be, it was kind of unusual. You'd see somebody that was older unless it was a master's program. But even when I was going into college and during my time there in the late 80s and early 90s, there were a lot of unconventional students there. So you would find a lot of people. I had a gal that sat next to me in my educational psychology class, and I still remember her to this day. She was just the sweetest woman. She was in her 60s. And she was getting her special ed degree so she could translate her skills from teaching in a traditional classroom into the special ed world. So it doesn't matter what your age is. I had a stockbroker. He traded on the floor of the stock exchange. Went back, got his master's in library science at 60, and is working as a librarian. So it's never too late. If you want to go back, even if it's for your personal edification, you can go back. Do not allow somebody to tell you you can't, or allow circumstances to keep you from at least looking into it. Because remember, you can always test some of them out through Coursera. MBAs or any master's degree have both benefits and caveats to them. Master's degrees are not required for most things. So a lot of times if you're getting your master's, it's for your personal edification. You want it, and it may not really have any necessity to your actual job. For some executives, though, in order to move up in their company, they must have an MBA. For teachers, they have to get their master's within 10 years. So sometimes it's a requirement, and that makes a lot more sense. But if it's not, just know that dependent upon the industry and dependent upon how big that organization is, you may take it off your resume sometimes and then put it back on for other jobs. It's important that you don't go after something and think, absolutely, this is going to mean everything to every company I apply to, when it's an MBA and you're applying within a small company. They may see that as you feeling the need to get paid more. And you don't get an MBA in a lot of senses to get paid more. And that's hard for people to hear. but most companies won't pay you more for it. They just like to be able to say that they've got people with MBAs. The benefit is additional knowledge. And a lot of MBA programs have either certificate programs that come with them or an emphasis area. And that's where you can get some add-on benefit for yourself. Let's say you're in human resources. So you go back, you get your MBA, but it's an emphasis in HR. People say, well, I just may as well have gone and got a master's in HR. Well, what if you wanted that bigger basis of business with an emphasis? There's nothing wrong with that, and it's not going to hurt you. And there are certain industries where even though a master's isn't required, it won't hurt you. Number one is IT. They don't care. You got a master's, they think that's fabulous. 2, marketing. 3, accounting. I don't know how many accountants I've had over the years who they have a master's and companies just line up to hire them. And then the other one is HR. A lot of companies want you to have a master's or be going after one. It's not a necessity, but it can make a difference. So now let's talk about that elephant in the room, the age factor. And this is both in youth and in experience. Sometimes you're applying for jobs and you're in your 50s, maybe even 60s. And you feel like, gosh, I'm not getting hired. I'm not even getting interviews. First thing I want you to consider is how far back did you go on your resume? Because if you went too far back, you've just created a problem for yourself. Now people go, well, they need to know what I was doing in 1975. No, they really don't. They really don't. They need to know what you've done for the last 10 to 15 years and how that applies to them. And sometimes for my clients, depending upon the organization they're applying to, I'll give them a resume with the past 20 years and one with just like the past 12, for instance. And they can use the one that's going to apply the most. But please don't visit the 90s. There's no need to visit the 90s now. I wouldn't do it. It ages you, it dates you. And people go, but I've been with a company for 30 years. Well, then you talk about the 20 years you were there and we don't reference the other. We can put an additional experience section on our resume and say we worked there before in a different capacity, but we don't need to identify those dates. That's code to them that I worked there before, but it doesn't tell them how long. So they could just be thinking you're 42 years old, and that's fine. This too much experience or over experience, or however they phrase it today, which is several different ways depending upon the company, that's just, I'm just going to say it, it's crap. If you have somebody who can provide you a whole lot of experience and you need their help, why would you not hire them? So if somebody tells you that, that's absolutely not the case. What they're thinking is they're going to have to pay you too much. That's what they're thinking. Or that you're not going to stay. Or they have age discrimination issues. Proving that is going to be exceptionally hard, and I don't know that I'd waste my time doing it. However, what you can do is make sure that you don't age yourself on that resume, and that when you are in an interview, you look like you're energetic and dynamic and you're going to stay with them for a while. That's the other thing they worry about. Oh, well, you're 60. You're not going to retire when you're 62, are you? Well, whether you are or you aren't, don't tell them that. Let them know that you want to stay. And quite frankly, most people don't want to retire. They want to stay with an organization, even in a part-time capacity, for a period of time, because they know if they retire, they're going to be bored out of their minds. Let them know you plan to be there for the long haul. Even if they're not going to be loyal to you, they need to think you're going to be loyal to them. As far as the youth discrimination, this comes from people just graduating from college or maybe first 5 years out, where they think, well, they don't have enough experience, or they're, I don't like the youth of today, they're entitled, or whatever stupid stuff they have going on in their heads. As one of my friends who's a Depression-era child told me one time, he goes, when I went into the workplace, everybody thought we were entitled and stupid. And he said, when the baby boomers came into the workplace, we thought they were entitled and stupid. When the baby boomers saw the next generation, my generation, Generation X, come in, they thought we were, you've got it, entitled and stupid. So every generation from before thinks that about the next generation. And the baby boomers think about that with all the people right now. They're like, oh gosh. However, I find that my clients prove them wrong on a regular basis. Every generation has a certain percentage of people within it that aren't going to do their work. They're just not going to. And they either have to learn, guess what? If you show up, they actually intend for you to work for them, or they never learn and they never really succeed usually. Don't let that stop you from continuing to apply. And you do everything you can through volunteer work, internships, whatever you have to do to prove them wrong. Age shouldn't have anything to do with this. It shouldn't matter whether you're 90 if you can do the work, or whether you're 18. If you can do it, you can do it. So you operate your life from that perspective. If you've got the experience and you know it, whether it's from that college time or whether it's from 25 years on the job, don't let them tell you otherwise. And don't let them tell you you're overqualified, okay? You keep your job search going. There are companies that will be interested in you. I know hiring managers right now who won't hire somebody under 40 because they don't think they're responsible. I don't agree with them, but that's how they feel. And then I know hiring managers who don't like to hire people over 50 because they think they're going to retire in 5 years, which is also stupid. But if you don't allow that to be a hindrance to you, chances are your next job won't be that far off. Dealing with layoffs and dismissals. Before we get into that, let's find out from Dylan if we have any questions.
Yeah, thanks, Karen. We had a couple questions pop up. One I was able to address, but the first question was, where can I find this recording later? Easiest place to point people to, youtube.com/Joco Library. You'll see a bunch of library related stuff, as well as every single career and finance recording that we have posted. So we typically get those up roughly a couple weeks after the presentation, so be on the lookout for that. Another question we received was from Joseph, who mentions, I have a doctorate in one field and am getting a certificate now in another degree. Would showing the doctorate be beneficial, i.e. showing that I was willing to put in the time for the education? Go ahead.
It would depend on the field you're in. For instance, if you're in marketing and you particularly do all the analytics behind things, that PhD is huge. They want to know you have that. And in fact, a lot of times for somebody doing all of those analytical assessments and the demographics and all of that, they want to know you have it. But some fields may think, oh gosh, you know, he's going to cost us a lottery, he's overeducated, which you and I both know, how is that a bad thing if I have more education than you thought I needed? But sometimes companies can be a little weird about that. It would depend on the field. Would you be willing to share what field you're in? And while Dylan's looking that up, we'll go forward, but I will say you may do what a lot of my clients do with their masters, and I have clients with doctorates who do the same thing. They take it off for certain things, they put it on for others. If it's nonprofit, if it's federal government, if it's state government, if it's city government, or even if it's academia or healthcare, you can have that doctorate on it every time. They don't care, they love it. Layoffs and dismissals. This is the most misunderstood thing that people deal with. People say, well, I was fired, but they weren't fired, they were laid off, or their position was eliminated. I just had a client whose position was eliminated. He thought he was fired. I said, Did they just come in and tell you to clear your desk out? No, they gave me a letter and I got severance and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, then you weren't fired. That's not fired. What happened is they just decided not to replace the position. So they eliminated it to save money. And it was a very large company, everybody knows the name of, in Kansas City. They did it specifically to save money in that area. A position elimination in one area often happens in multiple areas, even in smaller companies. Same with layoffs. Be sure that you say to the people who are interviewing you that you were laid off or downsized with other people. Because a lot of companies, I know it sounds terrible, they will lay you off and they won't give you any severance or anything, but you're told in the letter you're laid off. Well, they find it more legit if other people were laid off either on that day or in that time period. I had another client recently, over the last 3 months, 90 people had been laid off. And it's like, depending upon the week, people get laid off. It's usually onesies, twosies, but still 90 people. Well, he shared that and then they didn't question it because there were other people being laid off. Unless it's a very small company, they usually won't just lay off one person. They'll lay off several. Same with position elimination. And unfortunately, people who are kind of just above mid-level management, but not quite into the executive suite, who've been there for a while, are the first people who get this position elimination. You get paid too much now, apparently. And if they rename your position, which I just had a client who works for a hospital here in Kansas City that they did that to her. Instead of the position she had, they named it one step lower and re-advertised it, but they didn't renew her like they renew everybody every year. I think that's awful. I'm not opposed to corporate America at all. I'm a capitalist, I'm a business owner, and I'm not going to not become, or I'm not all of a sudden going to go, oh, business is evil. But there are some things that certain aspects of business do that I would love to stop them from doing. While I don't want to see more government control, I don't like the games that sometimes they play from this perspective, just so they can give stockholders a few more pennies on their stock. However, unless it's absolute, unequivocal discrimination, you do not have a lot you can do about it. For instance, a client who was laid off with 6 other people in their department, and their department, everybody was over 50. I don't care what you sign, you can go talk to an attorney. However, stuff throughout the company, different ages, different variables in their career and everything, there's not anything you can do about it. You just need to hope they give you a severance package. And they should, in every way, allow you to get unemployment. The only reason a company will fight unemployment typically is because you've been fired. Now, there are some companies that will make up things to not pay your unemployment, which is ridiculous and gets them a bad reputation online. And I'm not going to name any of them, but every city has them. I really have an issue with that. Proving it's hard, and it may not be worth your time. If you get fired, and what you've seen is they've reposted the job, and I had another client deal with this. Doctor's office, she doesn't even live here in town, so you would never know where this was. This doctor's office, all of their staff was fired so they could fight the unemployment. And they rehired all the staff back, if you will, as lesser job titles. These were different people that they hired in, but they played a game. And I told her, that's what you tell them. And I taught her how to say it, and nobody questioned it. We didn't even have her resume fully done yet, and she already had a new job because she'd taken a bunch of stuff I'd already given her, stuck it on her resume, sent it out, and got an interview and a job. They didn't question that. In fact, they felt terrible for her. It happens. Don't hide things. Recruiters, HR people, they can find this out. And you'll just make them mad. It's not worth it. If you were fired because you did something wrong, you need to tell them. Don't hide it. But don't sit there and say things like, well, it just wasn't a good fit. No, they don't buy that. And in fact, that's code for, I was fired for a real reason. You know what? Sometimes we do dumb stuff. Admitting that without going too far, keeping it very short and sweet, can get you a job. Honesty is so refreshing to people today. You will be shocked as to how often my clients who have actually been fired for things, including stealing from the company, who gave them a very short scenario of what happened, they got hired. And the company couldn't have been more appreciative for their truthfulness. Do not play games, but also don't tell them you've been fired if you were downsized or your position was eliminated. Explaining the uncomfortable merely means think about it before you walk in the door. Maybe if you've got a friend in HR, ask them how you should say it. If you've got a friend who's a recruiter, ask them. Get some opinions of people who hire other people, if they're hiring managers and stuff. I need to be able to explain this. I want to make sure I'm truthful, but I don't want to give them too much information, which is true. You don't want to give them too much. This will help you. And now you can kind of practice an answer. Now, I don't want you in the interview with your notepad going, yes, thank you, I did this. Don't be doing that. But come up with an overarching short answer that you're comfortable with. You don't need to mention it on your resume. Oh my gosh. So I have had, I critique resumes sometimes at career fairs, and I'll see every once in a while, and this one always has stuck with me. He had, probably 10 jobs in 3-4 years on there. And after each one, it said, manager was bad, got fired because we couldn't get along, whatever. And I mean, things that should never have been on there. So needless to say, we had a discussion about taking that off. What I could do was advise him what to do with the cover letter. I noticed before these like 10 jobs with all these descriptions that shouldn't have been there, that he actually had a job he'd been with for 7 years. And I asked him why, and he said, oh, I just kept getting micromanagers. He said, the person that was my manager for all this time, for those 7 years, and unfortunately, just because of the economic downturn, I got downsized. He was great. He just let me do my job. And I keep getting people who just want to spend their entire day looking over my shoulder, and I can't take it. And I'm not the most pleasant person when they do it. Okay. Now, in your cover letter, you're going to explain something about, in that job back 3 years ago, whatever it was, I had a wonderful manager and was able to work quite independently and was very successful doing so. But due to the economic downturn, I've had multiple short-term positions since then. So we're not really telling them what's going on with the micromanagement. However, in an interview, the first question out of his mouth should be, so tell me about your management style and give me 3 examples to the person who's going to be his manager. And the reason we do that is because the first example they give you usually always sounds so sweet, and they're going to hug you and tell you you're wonderful and set you off to do your stuff. Then the second and third example that they'll give you will be, and I'll stand over you the whole time, tell you you're wrong, make you do it over again. And I've had more clients saved from a micromanager asking that question so they didn't take a job than I can count. It's huge to make sure that you don't play the game on your resume and cover letter and go, I don't like micromanagers, but instead ask the right questions in the interview to find out. And of course, the person you're asking is the person who's going to be your direct manager. But you can put, depending upon how you word it, certain things on your cover letter. Or let's say your position was just recently eliminated. You could say, unfortunately, due to the COVID issue, our company experienced some financial issues and they had to eliminate some positions, and I was one of them. Simple. You're done. Go talk about yourself and how you'll be helpful to them. I really caution people, unless you absolutely unequivocally know it's going to be a stopgap job, do not take a job just to leave a bad one. or to stop unemployment. It's better that you go work at Home Depot or Barnes and Noble, you know, if they've even got Barnes and Noble stores anymore. But Home Depot, Lowe's, all these different outlets that are out there that are always like Amazon, always looking for help. I would rather you go work there than to take a bad job with a bad manager or some sort of terrible environment that you know 2 weeks in you're going to quit anyway. Does the company that you're working for share your values? And values is kind of a loaded thing, so you have to be careful. I'm just going to be very honest. You cannot be out there like they are sometimes at the Googles and the Facebooks of the world and say, we only support this and we don't support that, which means you're discriminating against a whole group of people. You don't get to play that game. That's not values. That's just people being immature. What you can do, though, is look and see, you know what? I love a company that gives back to the community in multiple ways. They do glass recycling and they sponsor those in town, and they have a community garden and they do this and they do that, and they're involved in junior achievement programs. It's okay to say, I like companies like that, and I'm going to target ones that do it. And from small to large, do this. I'd love to participate in the corporate challenge every year. I would like to participate in that, and I'm hoping, you know, once COVID has gone its course, that I can get back into that. Maybe you target a company that's participated in the corporate challenge in the past. Those are part of your values, that camaraderie, that community involvement, that kind of stuff. Same thing with, let's say you're a salesperson. Most people do not do well selling things they do not believe in. Some people, they don't care. It's like, it's a pen, I don't care, I'll go sell it. Most people want to believe in the product. That's part of your value system. Then there's company environment. And I want you to ask people who work there, if you can in any way get that, what they think of it, or what you see online on Glassdoor. What's the management like? What are the coworkers going to be like? What's the work-life balance like? I had a client who started asking some of these questions recently about a place she wanted to work, and she found out everybody works 80 hours a week. They didn't tell them that in the interview. They just said, oh yeah, you know, we're pretty much a 40 to 50 hour a week. So they just outright lied. But upon further investigation, she found out that wasn't true. She decided not to take that job. She already has a new job. She doesn't need that one. And all that would have meant is a career change right away. Doing job hopping when you don't have to is bad. And that's what happens when you take a bad one to get out of a bad one. You job hop. People know that during the economic downturn and during this COVID, some people have had to job hop. They've had no choice. But if we can get into a good company and stay at least 2 or 3 years, that will help us. Taking a stopgap job. Some of my clients are very resistant in taking a stopgap, part-time, or volunteer gig. But they've had 2, 3, 5, 10 years of not being employed for a variety of reasons. You need something current on your resume. Well, how does that help me in my career management? Well, for one, it can get you a job. That's kind of a big deal. And 2, it stops the gap in unemployment, which helps you fill in time as you move forward. And you never know where that relationship's going to lead. I've had people who've taken stopgap jobs. It's not what I really want to do, but they like me. We sang Kumbaya and they hired me. Well, sometimes those jobs have led to wonderful other opportunities in what they wanted to do. So don't dismiss that. That experience and having a current job can be huge. Now, sometimes people say, I don't want to take a stopgap job because I don't want to give a company full time and then just leave them. That's fine. Do part-time. And then there's also volunteer. Now, I will tell you one thing about volunteer work right now. It's a little harder to go after because so many places you can't do things in person. And that's okay. It's unfortunate, it is the way it is, but you can always find out if there's things that you can do for them that are remote. And you'd be surprised how many places will offer that. Professional organizations. Belonging to a professional organization can help you. And a lot of times what helps you is, number one, sometimes they have an internal job board of their own. And number two, they usually have professional development you can take. And they may know of openings that you would never know of because they're part of the hidden job market. A lot of companies, excuse me, as I do these seminars, my lip gloss and stuff just starts coming off. There's always those jobs that just don't get advertised on Indeed, Monster, Career Builder, etc. And the reason they don't get advertised is because the companies don't want to pay the money. I know of a company here in town, for the last 40 years, they've never once advertised a job online. They find all of their people organically through referrals. These professional organizations a lot of times know about those companies and will tell you, based on your experience, I would try here. That right there is huge because essentially I got referred to you by this particular organization. That could get you an interview. Ultimately, career management and career design go together. Career design is making our plans to move forward and how we're going to change a career, start an entrepreneurship opportunity, or how we're going to actually just go about getting a job. Career management are the things we do in between to make sure we keep a job or are ready in case our job goes away, or we decide to become an entrepreneur and we know there's things we have to do in that portion of time where we still have a job before we make the full switch. HR and hiring managers can be extremely discriminatory for long layoff periods. So having something on your resume can be helpful to you. I regularly use for clients who have had unfortunate lengths of time where they're unemployed for all kinds of reasons. Sometimes they're taking care of parents or whatever. I will have either that volunteer gig or the caregiver role with just, a bullet point with it or whatever for that time frame. Because trust me, having been a caregiver, that's a full-time responsibility. And it's very difficult. And especially if you're doing the whole 9 yards. You are giving them their medications, you're making their doctor's appointments, you're taking them to all their doctor's appointments. They have hospitalizations all the time. That's a full-time job. And it's a job that can go on your resume. You just can't make it sound like, oh, this is something I'm going to still be doing once I take a job with you. They have to see an end date, okay? The reason to have a current job on there or a current volunteer role is to get past that scanning system. Some companies, after 3 to 6 months of unemployment, where they don't see a current job on there or something fairly recent, will actually not allow your resume through the system. It's a dirty little secret. And I know because I've talked to people who not only experience it, but that are part of doing it. And the reason they do it is they think, well, if it's 6 months or whatever, their skills are old. Really? They forgot how to do their job? No. So if you have that volunteer gig on there, you get past the system. And the hilarious thing is, one of my clients who went 2 years of unemployment back during the economic downturn, we got him a volunteer gig at the Habitat for Humanity Restore Store and some current professional development on one of the professional sites that related to his job. When he went in for his interview with a company that he's still with at this point, they said to him, oh my gosh, you're volunteering to help others while you're out of work? Oh, and we love this professional development. Marketing you. That's what it is. It's all about marketing you. So if we're making good decisions on what we're doing now in order to make our resume better or to help us overall in our career and fill in gaps, we're going to be hugely benefited by that. Don't allow a human resources person, and I come from HR, so I love HR people, but don't allow a hiring manager or HR to make assumptions that you're sitting home watching Dr. Phil all day eating bonbons, because that's what they think. Let them see that you're doing some professional development. Let them see that you're volunteering, that you're not just passing time. Because trust me, there are some people who are doing that. Be prepared. So we want that updated resume for obvious reasons, but you can also have an updated career portfolio that has the references in it and the people you'll contact on a regular basis if you're job searching, and let them know what's going on. Do not list people as references because you had them the last time you job searched 3 years ago and expect them to give you a good reference. In fact, that's a way to get a bad reference. Nothing like getting a surprise call that somebody's gonna use you as a reference. That's a bad idea. Everybody that you want to use as a reference at a given time needs to know that that's going on. But you can have copies of professional development certificates, certification or licensing certificates, and answers to behavioral interview questions with you in a career portfolio that you update over time. And we're going to talk about that here in a minute. Track your professional development. Track your certifications, performance reviews, awards, all that kind of stuff. You should have what I call, and what the military loves to call, an I love me file at home. Your I love me file should contain all this stuff, usually more of the recent, last 7 to 10 years. Presentations you might have given, that they can be at the workplace, and you might get photobombed by a dog here in a moment. Documentation that you've developed. Most of you write things for the companies that you work for, and you don't even ask for credit for it on your resume. You create manuals that are 200 pages long. You create financial spreadsheets. You do all kinds of tracking for them, analytics and things, KPIs. Put that on your resume and keep it in your back pocket as far as knowing that you did it. I know you can't necessarily take that information home because it's proprietary, but you might want to write you a little bullet point and stick it in there and say, hey, in 2020, I was doing this, because now you can add it to your resume later. If you're in sales or have anything to do with their profit and revenue, and any new skills you gain. Keep your most valuable skills for the industry or industries you're targeting current. That's a huge problem. I have people, they were in IT, they had to take some other job, they've been out of IT for 3 years, didn't keep any of their skills current. Ooh, that's a problem. So now we got to go get training, and we may have to take another stopgap job in order to go get the training. Understand your personal brand. What is it that you offer to a company? And it should be multifaceted. It's not just one thing. None of you are just, I can just do this and that's it. So you have lots of different skills you bring. Some of you are wonderful communicators. You communicate well through writing. You communicate well person to person. You do a great job, whether it's I have to IM somebody or I'm texting, and you tend not to make big spelling errors in that or allow autocorrect to do nasty things to your stuff. That is hugely beneficial to a company. When is communication not a good skill? Some of you are good managers. Some of you are good leaders. But the thing is if you don't practice those skills, people go, well, how do you practice leadership? Well, you're either leading a project or you're leading some initiative there, even if it's a small one with 3 other people, or you're not doing anything. If you're not continuing these skills, there's a problem. And now let's talk about hard skills. I haven't done anything with R or Python in 2 years. You'd better get back, and there's classes out there that you can do it in. Get back on that horse and start practicing so you can say your skills are current. Because nothing companies love more than what I call a demonstration interview, where you're about to demonstrate your skill in R or Python. You don't want to be getting that surprise in an interview and not be able to do it. Your personal brand and those skills you bring that are current mean that an organization will take you more seriously, and that includes you being an entrepreneur. So I take professional development all the time. I just attended the National Resume Writers Association conference this week. Now I have some sessions I couldn't do because of client appointments that I will be refreshing myself on this weekend. However, I still attended. I attend conferences. I also do certification programs, and sometimes I don't even bother to get the certification. I don't care about that. I want the information in the program. I need another certification. I have 17. I'm not joking you. I don't list most of them. I need another certification like I need a hole in my head, an extra one. I don't need that. So what am I getting them for? To further my skill level right now and what I can offer to my clients. Same for you, okay? So don't ignore the ability to go to a conference when they offer it to you, especially if they're going to pay for it. Take advantage of it. Maintain your LinkedIn. Oh my gosh, I can't tell you how many people won't maintain a LinkedIn profile. Because you got a job doesn't mean you ignore your LinkedIn. It means you only go on a couple times a week for about 5 minutes. That's what it means. Maintain your image. I don't want to see all your personal opinions on Facebook. And I can hack your Facebook easy. And it's nothing I'm doing that's illegal. It's just a back-end way of getting in that people don't realize. If you're active on Facebook, if you're active on social media, that people can find things about you. And most people have no clue that they're getting a lot of unintended consequences in their job search because of their social media. Your personal opinions are just that. Share them with your friends via the phone, okay? When you're posting all this stuff online, you're creating problems. Well, my Facebook's private. No, it is not. And I show people regularly, or I'm talking to them on Zoom or on the phone, and I'm like, oh, well, there's a picture of this, and da-da-da-da-da, and there's your children, and that's supposed to be private. Uh-huh. Oh, here's all your opinions on everything right now. No. The reason we want to be careful is to make sure we can maintain a professional image. Now, what you can do, if you want to share personal opinions, is change your name and how it relates on Facebook. So it's a pseudonym, okay? Then you can go have your regular Facebook as a professional thing that you can share with them if you decide to. Or if they look it up and they look up your name, and that's where they go first, that they don't see the other one. They only see the professional one where you just share little things here and there. And, doesn't mean you have to share stuff about your professional life on there all the time. It doesn't mean you can't share pictures of your kids. But too much opinion, too much advocacy creates problems. So pseudonym yourself so you can be an advocate without getting yourself in trouble. Keep it professional. Keep your emails professional. Keep your email address professional, please. And make sure that you're doing the things that, like a picture that represents you on LinkedIn. It represents you probably on Facebook and on Twitter if you're on all of those, or on Instagram. That way you're not compromising yourself. Image is everything. We're a visual society, and that includes what we write and put online and how our picture looks. I know that that's not fair, but it is what it is. And oh my gosh, smile in your pictures. There's a lot of grumpy looking people out there, particularly on LinkedIn. They're trying to look serious, and they're, no, you want to look like you are happy. People want to hire happy people. They don't want to hire crappy people. Describe your skills and think the word CAR when you do it. CAR stands for something. You want to write this down. CAR stands for challenge, action, and result. And Dylan, you might want to put that to the side there for people. Challenge, action, and result. I literally just revised this seminar because of COVID and other things. So what you're doing is you're analyzing different things that you've done in your career, particularly in more recent years, last 5 to 10, that you can apply to interviewing for a job, and just kind of making sure you keep track of the things that you do on projects you've worked on, that manual you developed, that financial spreadsheet, those tip sheets you write all the time, that kind of stuff. Or something you did at a conference recently. Maybe you did a presentation. You'll see I give you this whole list of competencies. Use it. What did you do to analyze issues specifically? What was a challenge you faced, an action you took, and a result you achieved? People go, well, this is a long list. Yes, it is. So don't do it all at one time. 5 a day. Keep it simple. 5 will get you a whole lot of examples. I'm not going to belabor this list because of the time considerations, but please use this. I give this to all my clients, and the ones that take advantage of it, they have better interviews, they get jobs quicker. It's a huge deal. Plus, you'll go through these and go, oh, that's a great resume bullet point. So it serves double duty. Procrastination will hurt you. People procrastinate all the time. And excuse me, I actually have a little bit of bronchitis, so that's why I'm having to cough a little bit. I apologize. And I'm drinking lots of water. We procrastinate out of fear. It's the number one reason. And fear really becomes kind of a double-edged sword. Sometimes it's the fear of succeeding. Oh my God, what's that going to mean? And sometimes it's the fear of, oh, I just don't want to have to do this. It's just too stressful. Then there's the too busy. I'm too busy to do this. No, you're not. You are as busy as you choose to be. And I have to have that discussion with clients sometimes. Sometimes my unemployed clients are far busier than my clients that are employed. Employed in jobs, they work 60 hours a week, and they have families too. I have to be careful with the procrastination game. So how do we overcome it? And I've learned that I've gone through so much paper in the house recently. I think the trash men think we're nuts. We're like hoarders or something. And it's just getting rid of stuff. Old stuff from my mom. You know, she died back in 2004. But there's all kinds of paperwork. It's not anything we need, you know. Some of it, I can just tear a name off and go shred that part and put the rest of it in for collection by the trash people. I have to say that it's been very freeing to do that. There's a whole lot of stuff that's going on. Plus, we are bulky item pickup people. We got more stuff for you. We're trying to clean out things and just not have as much stuff. But I had to overcome it because it's a big job. So how did I do it? Time chunking, number one. I'm going to spend 5 minutes doing this, and I'm not going to allow shiny object syndrome make me go over here and do this. There's a little meme on Facebook that went around for quite a while, and it says, I have attention deficit cleaning disorder. I see something, I go clean it. While I'm cleaning, I find something else that's interesting to me, and then that leads me to something else, and before I know it, 30 minutes later, I'm sitting on the floor reading something that has nothing to do with what I originally started. Attention deficit cleaning disorder. And I'm not making fun of ADHD. I have relatives with that. But here's the thing. If you do have shiny object syndrome, and we all do in some areas in our life, you need to set a clock, and you need to just go tackle that for 5 minutes or 10 minutes and then be done. And when the clock goes off on your watch or on your phone, or if you have a clock, please stop, go do something else. Those little pieces of time, you can get amazing amounts of stuff done. Task chunking. I know that I have to clean this whole room. I don't want to clean this room right now. What I need to do is clean maybe 3 things in this room. So I'm chunking these tasks of cleaning these 3 things. And then when I'm done with that, I stop. Because tomorrow I can clean 3 more things. Same with your resume. Same with deciding what you want to do for college, or if you're going to get a master's. Same with what you do deciding what professional development you take. Same as what you do with creating challenge, action, and result examples. Time chunking or task chunking is your gift to getting things done. And I will tell you, it works for my clients, it worked for me, and you will feel so much better doing it. If you can avoid the shiny object syndrome while you're working, whether you have to do things in very small time frames or it's an hour, it's fine. But just start. And that's the other thing. Sometimes it's just about starting. I'm just going to tackle this one little thing. And once you start, you'll want to do more. I know writing a resume, creating a business plan, or doing any of that kind of stuff can be kind of like, repeatedly hitting yourself in the head. But if you do it, even in little chunks, you'll be amazed at how quickly you'll have it done. As I explain to my clients, if you do 5 challenge, action, and results every day, in 10 days, they're all done. How about that? Networking's never ending. And what you don't want to do is disappear off of social media, particularly LinkedIn. I got my new job. Who cares? Nope. You want to appear on there, but you don't have to do fancy stuff to do it. Congratulate people on new jobs. Congratulate people for their promotions. Congratulate people for their birthday. That's an easy way to do it. And share some articles and things that are in your homepage feed a couple days a week. Your name stays out there without you being overt and going to people going, so if I look for a job again, will you help me? Which is not a good thing to do. Networking can happen at a grocery store, even with a mask on. It can happen on LinkedIn, and it can happen via a virtual job fair. It's your choice to pay attention and see that there's things that you can do. In particular, the networking, say at the grocery store or whatever, because you hear somebody say something and it's a job you'd love to have, and they're like, man, my company's struggling to find this. If you don't say it, you're definitely not getting that job. So why would you not ask? People go, oh, I can't interrupt people like that. I do it. Nobody ever turns and looks at me like I've got, a second head growing out of my neck. They always are, oh, well, let me write that down for you. People love to help each other, even at 6 feet, okay? Don't be afraid, and do it very nicely. Go, I am so sorry to disturb you. I heard you say this, and I am looking for a job in that. Oh, they'll be glad to help you. One-on-one, in person, even in COVID. Do not assume because you're 6 feet apart you can't network with people. Have any of you on this call been to a party, if you will, been to a party that people were distanced? Because I have. We were highly distanced. There weren't a ton of people there. It was a very small gathering, but there were people I didn't know. That can be networking opportunities. Because what does everybody always ask you? Well, what do you do for a living? Networking time. Number one rule of networking, it's never about you. If you can always offer somebody something when you're networking, you will reap benefits. What can I do for them? Can I help them understand how to personalize their LinkedIn URL, which is the number one thing people don't know how to do? Can I talk to them about having that more complete profile? Do I know about a job they're looking for and a company that's hiring? Do I know how to get ketchup out of their kids' jeans? That has nothing to do with the job, but yet you offered them valuable information. Now what's going to happen? Guess what? They are going to want to help you. If you always remember it's not about you, your networking will take off and you will get results from it. If you go with the intent to get a new job or the intent to find out information that'll help you, networking will never help you. So always maintain the what can I do to help other people, and your networking will work, whether it's online or in person. LinkedIn, please complete your profile and maintain it. I cannot tell you how many people, I go onto their LinkedIn, they've been on for years, and all they have is that shadow avatar for a picture, so there's no picture. They have their most recent job on there, and they listed their education. No bullets, no endorsements, no recommendations, nothing that they share. They don't even go on their LinkedIn. They can't remember their password. They have to change it while they're working with me. Please, please, please. 2 days a week, 5 minutes each. That'll do you. We've already talked about the caveats of social media, so I'm going to skip that for now. Never forget those you already know and have built a relationship with in the past. Okay? So share some of those things we talked about, like congratulating them on certain aspects of their career. For ongoing professional career management, and professional means anything that you do and you do it with gusto. So whether you are a wait staff person or you are a vice president of a company, you're still a professional. It has a very generic meaning today. It means what you do, you love it probably, you do it well, or at least you do it well. Sometimes you don't always love it. Develop a list of personal and professional goals and timelines. Keep in touch with your network. Keep up your car examples. I can't even begin to tell you how important those are. Every single promotion opportunity, every single performance review, if you will, every year, please, please, please write some car examples during your performance review. How many times have you been in a performance review and your boss has forgotten everything you've done that year except for that one mistake you made? Well, you can overcome that by sharing several of your successes with him, because guess what? They're worried about their performance review. Find a mentor. If you need to hire somebody to help you, go do it. And as I tell people, I'm not doing this seminar so you come hire me. Just make sure you find somebody who you feel is qualified. Know what the competition's doing. If everybody in your field is getting a certain certification or taking a certain course and finding it very helpful, you might want to consider it. Now, this isn't the thing of let's be the lemurs let off the, or whatever. It's looking at what makes sense and is real. It's not something that is just fluff that, well, some people got it because it was a shiny object. It needs to be something that's useful. And lastly, I want you to keep remembering this. If you do not manage your career, if you do not manage your personal brand, if you do not manage your time, all of those things will manage you. There's no reason to live your life with everything around you managing you. And that's everything from learning to say no when you need to task chunking. Okay? If you do these things and you do little bits of them at a time, God forbid that layoff comes. Or you decide you want to start your own company. You've already done the work then. You're ready to go. You're not scrambling and in an emergency. Because what do emergencies make us do? They make us make mistakes. We'll go into something thinking, I am going to be, I'll get this resume done tonight and I'll send it out and everything. And it's full of mistakes. It's not really informative. It doesn't have the information it needs to have on it. Or you go into an interview and you haven't done any prep there. And now you can't tell them what their company does. Manage your career. Do not allow it to manage you. Okay, any other questions? Because I took us to just about 2 hours.
You're good. So we did have a couple of questions come through. One, Carolyn asks if you have any recommendations for online resources for volunteer opportunities.
Now, there have supposedly been some sites that are good for that. I tend not to find them to be as great as they say. Usually a city will actually have, and Kansas City has one through their stuff, or Johnson County, for instance, they'll have things. The library will often have lists that they know of volunteer organizations. Doesn't mean they necessarily need help, but they'll have the lists of them. Usually what we need, as far as we're trying to actually find a place that needs our help, that's not available on there, but it's more the list of the organizations. Now, there's certainly other things out there like organizations that work with those who are looking to find a job or get some additional stuff in their careers. And they're out there too, whether it's a guidestar.org or something like that. But my recommendation to you, find out what the library has, first of all, as far as what their knowledge is of volunteer organizations. And a lot of times, if you wander around on their website, you'll find a whole list. But also what your city or municipality has, because I find Kansas City, for quite a while, I don't know what the list is right now because I haven't looked, but they had a whopping list of volunteer organizations for quite some time. So I'm sure they still do. And they put it out during the economic recession years ago. So I'm sure that there's some up-to-date information on there now, considering the COVID issue.
Right, and that's kind of a key portion there, because so many volunteering opportunities, even speaking directly from the library's standpoint, so many volunteering opportunities have been affected.
Yes.
So yeah, it's important to have that up-to-date information.
Yeah, and you always find out,
Oh,
can you do online, or can you, are they allowing people to come in? Because a lot of my people that I know, they want to do all this stuff for the pet shelters and things, but the pet shelters won't let you in right now, a lot of them. But if you're willing to be a foster, they have huge need. I was just on the Missouri German Shepherd rescue site today, and they are in desperate need of fosters. And guess what? I just put that on somebody's resume for volunteer work, because that's a job, fostering a dog or a
yeah,
cat.
and Karen, you can't take them all. I get it.
I know,
So,
and if I could, I would, but yeah, that's why they don't let me work at those places.
right. So circling back to Joseph's question, if we recall, he has a doctorate in one field, which, as it turns out, is music composition.
Okay.
And he's getting certification now in another degree, in this case, computer programming. So that concern is, would showing that doctorate for the music comp be beneficial?
No.
Again, showing that he was willing to put in the time for the education. Go ahead.
No, but you can always mention it in an interview. You can say, well, I have another degree. I don't put it on there, but obviously I'm willing to spend the time to learn what you need me to learn. I actually have a degree in music composition. But they don't need to know that. They need to know your degree in your current field and the certifications you're getting in that, because that's what's going to sell you to them. Sometimes extra information like that just muddies the waters, and they spend too much time concentrating on that. And guess what? Having a good friend who married one of my best friends, who's a famous composer, he'll tell you that's a rough road, and he's well known. The problem is that when you put it on a resume for something that it has nothing to do with, while it's a wonderful thing that you have, they can start asking questions about that and totally get off kilter with looking at you and what you can offer them for the very field you're applying in. And I've had that happen to many clients, especially ones they have, like I do, a teaching and a performance one. And they'll get off on the performance degree and be too enamored with that and asking, well, why didn't you go into performance and all of this kind of stuff? And essentially the interview gets hijacked.
Right on. Well, I want to be mindful of everyone's time here, but if everybody has a few extra seconds to stick around after the recording is done, I just have a quick poll to throw at y'all, and then you can get on with your day. So again, thank you all for joining us this afternoon. Thank you, Karen, for just such a fantastic presentation. Our next Career in Finance program will take place at 6:30 p.m. on Wednesday, September 23rd. And we'll be focused on filing for financial aid to attend college. Visit jocolibrary.org and click on the Career and Finance feature to discover our upcoming events, sign up for our monthly Career and Finance e-newsletter, or find additional career and finance resources. Also, be sure to follow the library's Facebook page, facebook.com/jocolibrary, to receive notifications for additional live online Johnson County Library programming for all ages. Thank you all so much, and we're going to go ahead and shut this recording down. Thank you.
Thank you.